Iran. We had a productive week. We saw the Europeans take a position with respect to the attacks that took place in Saudi Arabia, making clear this was Iran, just as President Trump and I had been saying, and have now joined us in saying that the existing JCPOA framework is just not going to work. It's not going to solve the world's problems. It's not going to create Middle East stability. Then we had a good set of meetings with our Middle East allies as well. The President joined for a meeting of the GCC where we talked again about how we can help deter. We want peace. We want a peaceful resolution with the Islamic Republic of Iran. We're hoping we can get that way. In the end, it'll be up to the Iranians to make that decision, or whether they'll choose violence and hate. And as the President said in his speech yesterday to the General Assembly, if their bloodthirst will continue. We hope that's the net. We hope we can get the opportunity to negotiate with them and get an outcome that's good for both them, for the United States, to make sure that they never have a nuclear weapon, and that they can't foment their terror with ballistic missiles and in the way they have all around the world. And I think we made real progress uniting the world on that here over these past few days. Thank you.
Thank you.
As Secretary Pompeo said on Iran, we had very good discussions with all of our allies about the sanctions program, which is the maximum pressure and unity on the sanctions program. The Europeans made it very clear they would not do anything without our consent. And then on the economic front, we had the entire economic team here for all the meetings. Secretary Ross, Larry Kudlow, Ambassador Lighthizer just left to go back to D.C. He's working hard on trying to get USMCA passed. But we had a lot of productive discussions, the Japanese trade deal, and a lot of discussions on investing in the U.S., more jobs in the U.S., and more trade. Thank you.
Okay. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. Christina Partsinevelos, Fox Business. I want to focus on markets because I'll leave it to everybody else to talk about impeachment. Markets reacted positively after you spoke about China and that it would happen sooner rather than unexpectedly. Yet you have the foreign minister of China saying that they have no intention of, unseating the United States, and yet they're investing heavily in infrastructure and military.
Not anymore, maybe.
But what is
and
different?
Maybe they just say that, Christina.
What is different this time, though? The fact that you're saying it's progressing.
Oh, I just think it's progressing. I think they want to make a deal. They're losing their supply chain.
Do you have something specific?
Well, I don't want to say that, but I can tell you that these two men, and in this case, more specifically, Steve, we're having some very good conversations, and I guess it's next week that a group is coming in, and the week after. So we have a lot of talks going on, and also by telephone. They want to make a deal, and you know why they want to make a deal? Because they're losing their jobs, and because their supply chain is going to hell. And companies are moving out of China, and they're moving to lots of other places, including the United States. And that's not good. That's far worse than they thought. And by the way, in the meantime, we're taking in billions and billions of dollars in tariffs. We're taking in tremendous numbers in tariffs, and we're helping our farmers who got targeted. Now, by the way, China is starting to buy our agricultural product again. They're starting to go with the beef and all of the different things, pork. Very big on pork, but if you look and if you see, and they actually put out, I think, a statement, but they're starting very heavy to buy our ag again. No, they want to make a deal, and they should want to make a deal. The question is, do we want to make a deal?
If USMCA doesn't pass through Congress, is that it for NAFTA?
Well, that would be a shame. Well, I don't want to answer that question, but you know how I feel about NAFTA. I think NAFTA is the worst trade deal ever made, although I also happen to think World Trade Organization was not one of the greats, not one of the greats. That was the creation of China, which went like a rocket ship from the day they signed. It was terrible. But no, we're going to find out. That's going to be a very interesting question with Nancy and Chuck and all of these people focusing on the witch hunt because they can't beat us at the ballot. They can't beat us at the ballots, and they're not going to win the presidential. We're having great polls. We have internal polls that are fair. Ohio, Iowa, Pennsylvania's looking good. North Carolina, we just won 2 races that a lot of people we thought we were going to lose both those races. One was down 17 points 3 weeks before the race, and he ended up winning by a substantial margin, and Dan Bishop. And then we had a second race, as you know, and he was up 1 or 2 points, and he ended up winning by, what was it, 25 points or some incredible, I'll ask you folks because I don't want to be inaccurate, otherwise I'll have a front page story. We have breaking news. Trump exaggerated, but he won by many, many points, and he was leading by maybe 2, maybe 3, but he won by in the 20s. So so we're looking great in North Carolina, looking great in Florida. And you had 1 or 2 congressmen, Democrats, saying, listen, we can't beat him at the election, so let's impeach him, right? Didn't you hear Al Green? That's a beauty. He's a real beauty, that guy. But he said very distinctively, it was all over the place. I don't know, they're trying to lose that tape, I guess. But he said, we can't, essentially, he said, we can't beat him, let's impeach him. That's pretty dangerous stuff. Steve, go ahead.
Thank you, sir. You had expressed some concerns about the precedent of releasing the transcript.
Yeah, I don't
Why
like
did you go ahead and do it?
Because I was getting such fake news, and I just thought it would be better. And now they're asking for the first phone conversation, and I'll release that too if it's important to you. But they're asking for, because I had a conversation previous on a previous election plateau that he had hit. The current president hit a couple of different plateaus, and I spoke to him previous to the call that we released, which was a very innocent call, very, very innocent, very nice call. And as he said, I wasn't pushed. I wasn't pushed, meaning pressured. He wasn't pressured at all. But I don't like the concept of releasing calls, because when a president or a prime minister or a king or a queen calls the United States, you don't like to say, gee, we're going to release your call to the fake news media, and they're going to make you look like a fool. What happens is it's hard to do business that way. You want to have people feel comfortable. So I hated it, but you folks were saying such lies, such horrible things about a call that was so innocent and so nice. In fact, Lindsey Graham said to me when he read it, it was very interesting. He's a good man. He's a smart man. He said, I can't believe it. I never knew you could be this really nice to a person. He said, I cannot believe it. You were so nice. I didn't think you had that in you to be so nice. I was nice. I'm nice to a lot of people. People don't understand that. But I was. But he was shocked that it was such a nice call. And he said, there is nothing here. And all fair people say the same thing. But I don't like the precedent, Steve. I don't like it where you're dealing with heads of state, and to think that their call is going to be released. But I felt that, and you know, we spoke to Ukraine about it. Mike actually called up his counterpart, and we spoke to Ukraine about it because it could have been, if they didn't want us to do it, we would not have done it. But he actually said that was a very innocent call. You can release it all you want.
And are you now braced for a long impeachment saga?
Well, I thought we won. I thought it was dead. It was dead. The Mueller report, no obstruction, no collusion. You look at all of the things that happened. Corey Lewandowski was fantastic the other day as a person that they have been tormenting. You look at all the people that they've tormented, all the legal fees. People came here with bright eyes. They wanted to make life so great for other people, and they left where they spent hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees that they didn't have. And it's a sad thing. What these Democrats have done to ruin lives is so sad. I have seen people with only good intention. They came to Washington because they wanted to make the United States and the world a better place. And they went home, they were dark. They got hit by Mueller subpoenas. I think there were 2,500 subpoenas or some ridiculous number. 500 people were interviewed, and yet they don't interview Joe Biden and his son. If you're a Democrat, you have automatic protection. That's years and years of people putting in certain people into positions. But when you look at all of the trauma that these fakers have caused, and the press, look, much of the press is not only fake, it's corrupt. These stories they write are corrupt. They're so wrong, and they know that. You know, it used to be, I used to get great press until I ran for politics. I mean, I used to be the king of getting good press. I was very good at it, and I got good. I mean, they covered me well for what otherwise I probably wouldn't be here. And once I ran, I said, boy, this is incredible. But if you see the way they treat my family, used to be treated great. My family works so hard. The people that work with me, these people, all of these people, they work so hard. They've done such a good, look, we have the greatest economy we've ever had. We have a military, $2.5 trillion. We've rebuilt our military. You don't hear the vets complaining. We got choice approved. It couldn't be approved. But when you see what happened with the viciousness, and when you see little Adam Schiff go out and lie and stand at the mic, smart guy, by the way, stand at the mic and act like he's so serious, and then he goes into a room with Nadler, and they must laugh their asses off. They must laugh their asses off. But it's so bad for our country. People have said, Rush Limbaugh, great man, Sean Hannity said it, a lot of people have said it, Mark Levin, they said they don't know of one man anywhere in the world with all the men they know, or woman, that could handle what I've had to handle. And I think that's true, but I handle it. To me, it's like putting on a suit. All right, how about one more question? Question on the economy. A question on the economy. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Hi, Mr. President. VPI-TV from Venezuela, Caracas,
Good,
Venezuela.
Good, wow.
Yeah.
How are you doing? How are you doing over there?
Pretty bad.
Yeah,
Our situation
I would say pretty bad, yeah. Sad.
Yeah, but we are fighting.
And it was one of the great countries and one of the richest countries not so long ago,
Yeah.
15 years ago. It's incredible.
But we are going to make it.
Right. I agree with that. And we're helping you.
Yeah.
We're helping you.
Yeah, I know. And thank you.
Go ahead.
I have two questions to take advantage of this. Maduro traveled to Russia and Diosdado Cabello to North Korea, two of the most antagonist nations in the U.S. interests. What can be done to contain this? What are they looking for in that country? And because the special envoy, Mr. Abrams, said that the Russians are willing to negotiate it. This is one question. And the other, Mr. President, you say that the socialist is one of the biggest challengers. You said yesterday in the United Nations, but the region is far from safe. Maduro is still a dictator, full in power, and in Argentina and Brazil are under threat about the socialists and populists. Are you worried about it?
Well, I just say that socialism will never happen in the United States, can't happen in the United States. And Venezuela, unfortunately, I have to use your country as the example of what socialism can do, how it can tear the fabric of a country apart. Because I know a lot about Venezuela. I've had many friends of mine come from Venezuela. They live, many in Miami, a certain section of Miami. I won't mention the name because they'll say I'm thinking about my business, and I'm not. But they are fantastic people, and they like your president. They voted overwhelmingly for me. They like what I'm doing for Venezuela. We have Venezuela very much in our hearts and very much in our sights, and we're watching it very carefully. And you know what I would say? We're giving millions and millions of dollars in aid, not that we want to from the Maduro standpoint, but we have to because on a humanitarian, people are dying. They have no food, they have no water, they have no nothing. They're dying, no medicine. Their hospitals are closed or don't even have electricity. It's so sad to see. Let me just say that we have it under control. We're watching it very carefully, and we're going to be very, very... We're watching it very carefully, including other countries that may or may not be playing games. We're watching it very closely.
But you know if Russia is talking with USA or Guaido, what can you tell about us?
Just put this in the back of your mind. It's all going to be fine. We know everything that you said, and it's all going to be fine. We're very much involved. We very much know what's going on, and we're very much involved. Okay? Thank you all very much. Thank you. Thank you very much.
As reporters always do, they hope the president will stick around and take a couple of more questions, but he's talked for almost 50 minutes there. At the UN General Assembly, the president wrapping up. This is the final day. He's met with lots of leaders. He said he worked morning till night as he fights back against the Democrats' formal impeachment inquiry while all of this other things were going on. This high drama coming after the White House released an unredacted transcript of Trump's phone call with the president of Ukraine. It shows Trump asked about looking into Joe Biden and his son's business dealings, but there was no direct mention of military aid. Also breaking this hour, Congress has now received the official whistleblower complaint and is currently reviewing it. We've got some pent-up commentary to get to. Greg, let's go to you first because we didn't get to hear from you yesterday.
That's true. I was sent home like a child.
Now you're here. You have all these great notes.
I am glad that the Dems and the media, finally got to the impeachment. It was like watching Sam and Diane on Cheers, flirting for 3 years to get to it. And finally they got into bed and they impeached like rabbits. But it might have been a good idea to have waited until the transcript came out. Because when you look at it,
They pre-impeached.
You look at it, it's a phone call in front of witnesses where one guy's asking another guy about something that happened in the past that you could look into, which I think is in his job description to ask about corruption. No wonder the transcript suddenly isn't enough. Oh my God, we need something else because they screwed up. Almost went in the wrong direction with that verb. Anyway, I love how the Dems said that we didn't arrive at this conclusion lightly. No, you arrived at this conclusion 3 years ago. You've been pounding it to the ground ever since. The media cites a growing clamor, right? A growing clamor for impeachment. They are the growing clamor for the last 3 years since Trump was elected. They act like they're a model of restraint, that this was the last straw. No, every day for the past 3 years has been the last straw. So what I say is the country right now is a victim of impeachment harassment. The media expects you, the viewer, to have a heart attack every freaking week. Every time they come up with a new bombshell, they want you to writhe in terror. But our viewers and the people at home and the voters know better than this. There's a disconnect between the way America is and the way the media portrays it, right? Americans are starting jobs. There's low unemployment. They got swollen IRAs. They're spending their money. But the Dems, they can't profit off that. The media can't profit off that. So they have to paint an apocalypse. The viewers should be outraged that they are putting through an unhealthy, emotional roller coaster every single day. But I know that they get it. They've always been way ahead of us on this stuff. They see it for what it is. It's not left versus right. It's not conservative versus liberal. It's the media versus you. And they hate you.
All right. That was a lot of emotion.
Sorry, I had to get it out. Hey, look, I was home yesterday, okay?
You've been with the president all day. John, you'll wrap this up for us. Thank you. John? Hello? John? John?
Oh, hey, Dana. Sorry, it's a little noisy here. I didn't hear. I'm sorry. Can you repeat the question?
I was suggesting you could wrap up the press conference for us and maybe just a week because it's been quite a one. It's only Wednesday.
Well, you could see that it was sort of an airing of grievances here by the president. It almost felt like Festivus there for a little while. The president saying that he had all these accomplishments this week at the United Nations, and yet they went unreported because everybody was focused on this idea of impeachment, which we should point out is not an insignificant thing. The fact that this is only the fourth time that a president in the history of the United States has faced impeachment proceedings definitely carries with it a measure of significance. The president talking about his phone conversation with Vladimir Zelensky. The two of them also had a bilateral meeting. The president saying that he can't believe that the Democrats are going down the road of impeachment over what was discussed in that phone call. Both the president and President Zelensky earlier today saying that there was no pressure put on the call, but clearly the president did have a couple of asks. One in which he characterized as being a favor. He asked Zelensky to look into this whole idea of CrowdStrike and alleged interference in the 2016 election on behalf of Hillary Clinton by elements in the Ukraine. And then the other one separate to that, which wasn't characterized as a favor, to look into Joe Biden. The president also suggesting that if Democrats want a transcript of the first conversation that he had with Zelensky after he won the presidency. They are welcome to that as well. And the president also talked about transparency in terms of this whistleblower complaint. I'm told that the complaint is on Capitol Hill, and the question is whether or not the president will actually seek to have that declassified and made public. That may be part of that call that he made with Leader McCarthy about transparency. So we'll see, Dana. Still a lot to come in this.
All right, John, it's been wonderful to have all of you in New York. And I mean that. Like,
it's been good to be here.
Yeah, okay. All right, thank you, John. Jesse, you have some thoughts?
I just can't believe we have a Cheers and a Seinfeld reference right at the top of the show. It's just an unbelievable show already. I think just bottom line, the Democrats are trying to impeach Trump for crimes that they themselves committed. These are nasty, ruthless, destructive, hypocritical people. And it's going to take a lot of energy to fight back their deceit and their lies. But you know what, Dana? I'm up to the challenge. And I'm going to do this for the American people because they are being lied to. This is what the bottom line is. Donald Trump has taken a sledgehammer to the ruling class, and the ruling class is fighting back hard as hell, and they're never going to stop. He beat back Spygate, the Russia hoax. He exposed Hillary, all of her corruption, and now he's beginning to expose the Biden family corruption in Ukraine and in China. And they want to impeach him for exposing Biden's corruption. This is what's going on. The left says they don't believe what Biden did, abusing his power, abusing taxpayer money, and his son enriching himself is a crime. They think it's a crime for Trump to say, hey, can you look into that? Because Donald Trump is the chief executive of the executive branch of this country. And he is in charge of executing the laws. So if some American citizen is committing potential crimes in the United States or overseas, he has the right to say, hey, guys, can you look into it? But the Democrats are saying, no, 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 no. Joe Biden and his family, they're above the law. Joe Biden can't be looked into by this current administration, and he can't be looked into by the Ukrainian administration. So Joe Biden basically gets a free pass. He can run around and commit all sorts of crimes because he's just above the law. And to say that this administration can't enlist an ally to look into potential corruption of a political opponent, isn't that exactly what the last administration did? The last administration enlisted multiple allies, including Ukraine, to look into Trump and all of his people on no basis, with no evidence. Yet this time, the evidence is right in front of us. We have Joe Biden on tape, and we have his son's receipts. So at this point, the Democrats are accusing Trump of crimes they committed, and this is in order to get out in front of the Durham investigation and the Bill Barr investigation. It's an admission they can't beat Trump at the ballot box. And this is Nancy Pelosi trying to ride this crazy impeachment train the best they can. But you know what's going to happen? Sadly, coincidentally or not, Joe Biden might take the fall for all of this.
Okay, I'm going to have to stop you there for 1 second. We're going to come right back for more commentary. But first, let's go to Mike Emanuel, because the whistleblower complaint, it is now up on the Hill. Mike Emanuel, have you seen it? Have you able to break it down for us?
No, not at all, Dana. It is here on Capitol Hill, but it is inside what is known as a SCIF here on Capitol Hill, a sensitive, compartmented information facility. And so you have members of the House and Senate Intelligence Committees going in to get a look at this document, the whistleblower complaint, and get to break it down a bit for themselves. But when they've been coming out, they have said absolutely positively nothing, which is pretty common when you have the Intelligence Committee members going into a sensitive facility. They don't want to be caught talking on camera when they're on the way out. Bottom line, it's been pretty stunning how quickly things have moved here. Yesterday morning, you had the Speaker saying that something had changed, that it was a time for a formal impeachment inquiry. So the President then said, fine, you want the transcript of this phone call with the Ukrainian President? I will release it. Then Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer said, I want more than that. I want the whistleblower complaint. So 10 o'clock this morning Eastern time, you had the President hand over the full transcript of that conversation. And then 4 o'clock this afternoon, now the whistleblower complaint is up here on the Hill. Dana.
All right. Thank you, Mike. We appreciate it. We'll catch up with you tomorrow. There's a hearing tomorrow at 9 a.m. with the Director of National Intelligence, the acting director, Joseph McGuire. Juan, do you think that the Democrats should have waited until they'd seen the transcript and the whistleblower before they move forward, as Nancy Pelosi did last night?
No, I think that based on what we know and what has been proven in terms of the release, it's not a transcript per se, it's more a memo written of people who understood or heard the conversation. I think that they were exactly right. You know, today apparently the White House talking points got leaked to some Democrats. But I think it's leaked farther.
They weren't leaked. They were accidentally emailed to them.
Yeah,
That's not leaked.
Emailed. Well, yeah, accidentally. They didn't intend it, so I guess it was leaked. But I think, you know, just listening here, I think, boy, those talking points, they've made the rounds because the reality is...
Wait, what does that mean? Whoa. What does that mean? Are you saying that I got talking points wrong? No, you got to answer. You got to answer to the accusation.
You're telling me I was told what to say about the White House?
I'm saying they're all around. But here's
you telling me
you had a whole day to talk.
You
didn't have to. Let's get Katie in. At least she has something to say that's original.
Here we go. Asking a foreign government to investigate a political rival is illegal.
Oh.
It's illegal. Okay. It's a violation of the Constitution.
Did you get that from Media Matters, Juan?
And the constitutional oath is that the president should protect and defend the Constitution of the United States. Okay. And by the way, this isn't just
So he's supposed to look away from potential corruption? How's that protected?
No, you can't, because you accuse us of reading talking points.
Here's what it is. Judge Napolitano, who's our senior news analyst, he says, what does he say? You don't need a quid pro quo. You just need to ask a foreign government to interfere in this conversation. It's not only that. I mean, you stop and think about it. Pelosi says this is lawless. Okay, Mitt Romney said extremely troubling. It comes from a Republican.
Okay. Of course.
You get a situation where the President of the United States is saying, I want dirt on my political opponents. And then I hear, it's because we can't beat you at the ballot box. It's because he's worried about Joe Biden.
Yeah,
this, to me, is an outrage, and it's unbelievable that people would try to throw up smoke.
It's exactly what you did in the last election. It's exactly what Obama and his people did to Trump.
Ron, you've had 2 days to talk about it. Katie hasn't been able to say a word.
Let's talk about
Mr. Filibuster.
Two things that
you were on this show yesterday. We weren't, Juan. You had your shot.
Let's talk about 2 things that you brought up. You said that it is illegal for a president to ask for dirt, but from a foreign agency or a foreign government. Senate Democrats sent a letter to Ukraine in 2018 asking for them to investigate President Trump by cooperating with the special counsel investigation. So if Trump is guilty of it, so are the Democrats.
That's a cooperation.
You also essentially imply.
He was asking him to do an investigation.
Let her talk, Juan.
Did you read the transcript or not? That doesn't seem like you did. Sorry, Katie.
Nope, I'm good. Yep. Okay. All right. So you imply that the transcript was not properly transcribed. The people who wrote the notes were CIA agents who were brought in from the CIA to do this. We know that people who have done these things before have said on record today that this is the closest you're going to get to a transcribed
there's not a
situation. So on to the political aspect of this. You know, the word favor has been tossed around a lot in terms of the transcript of people accusing the president of giving a favor and asking for a favor of Joe Biden being investigated. He actually uses the term favor when he's asking about Ukrainian interference in the 2016 election. And let's not forget that it was the DNC who went and met with Ukrainian officials in Washington, D.C. to ask for dirt on President Trump on behalf of Hillary Clinton. That's the first thing. The second thing is the president this week has been able to set up in huge contrast when it comes to what Democrats are focused on and what he is doing. He's been meeting with a number of leaders. You had Secretary Pompeo stand up and say we've convinced a number of allies that the Iran deal is no longer the way forward with Iran. So while he's doing this on the world stage and having serious conversations about the security of the country, the Democrats are focused on impeachment based on a transcript that they didn't even see till today, and continuing on with the narrative while the president's actually focused on serious issues that affect the country, and voters are going to be the ones who decide if that's going to happen.
Well, last month, I can't remember which poll it was, but they're pretty much consistent across the board that 60% or more of people say they are not for impeachment, that they don't have the appetite for it because they would like to see other things get done. And I do wonder, Greg, about the Democrats. How do you make a message to the people that it was worth it to put you in power to deal with health care and get deals and get things done with the president if, in fact, you don't have anything to show for it?
They're doubling down on a pair of twos, right? This is cognitive dissonance. Remember, that's born from studying a cult. Like, what happens when the leader's predictions don't work, don't pan out on doomsday? The the followers just double down. So what you're seeing is you're seeing the Democrats continually saying that there's going to be an impeachment. There's going to be impeachment. Why is that? Because they cannot lose their psychological investment in this battle. Yet, meanwhile, they're totally ignorant to the rest of the country that do not want impeachment, which in the country that is booming. People are starting businesses. You know, like I said, they're spending their IRAs. People are actually getting along, unlike 5 years ago. Relatives are getting let out of jail thanks to Trump. People are having, it's great, it's easy to get along when you have jobs. And this is what the Democrats want you to ignore and what the media wants you to ignore.
Well, and I think on the Biden angle, too, the question is, well, why is Joe Biden even in this conversation? The New York Times published that story about him bragging about getting the prosecutor fired in May of 2019. Trump talked to the president of Ukraine in July. Short couple of months later, that's why he says there's stuff going on in Ukraine about the prosecutor. That's possibly why he brought it up in the conversation. But the question of Biden is, was he selling influence through his son to get access to the White House in Washington? It's the same reason. It's the same reason why Hillary Clinton had a lot of trouble with the Clinton Foundation and why the Clinton Foundation completely dried up as soon as she wasn't elected president. She got a lot of checks that came through when she was the Secretary of State. The same questions that applied to her selling of influence in that situation also apply to Joe Biden in the vice presidency, which is why you're seeing outlets like the RNC calling for him to release his transcripts.
Katie, can I just respond a second? First of all, everybody's looked into this Joe Biden thing, and nobody has found anything. No, seriously. Nobody's found anything, and yet all of these conspiracies and the things.
What do you mean no one's found anything?
No, wait a second.
What does that mean?
Let me finish. This is, to me, this is like an intentional act of distortion in order to defend the president, because this is not. I mean, it's not about Joe Biden. If anything had been found that was illegal, then you say, okay, well, here's what it is. No, this is all speculation. What this is about is a phone call that the president of the United States placed, in which he says, you know, we've been very good to you over in the Ukraine. Can you do me a favor?
Let me give you an example.
Can you interfere in American politics?
Let me give you an example.
Oh, wait, he said that? I didn't see that in the transcript.
Say Donald Trump flies over to Ukraine because he's the point man on the diplomacy over there. And at the same time, Trump Jr. goes over there and gets some nice job bringing home $50K in time as wheeling and dealing on energy deals. You think that's okay? Let's just like a difference between the Trump Jr. situation and Hunter Biden, okay? No, because you brought up the fact that Hunter had a crack pipe found on him the other day. I'm not even going to bring that up. I'm not even going to bring that up. I'm going to leave that out of it, just for argument's sake, okay? When Donald Trump became president, his sons stopped doing international business deals. When Joe Biden became vice president, his family started doing international business deals. When he goes over there, Joe Biden, and he starts pushing new natural gas deals over in Ukraine, like a month later, his son gets this cushy gig where he's bringing home millions of dollars, and then once he gets investigated, Joe Biden uses taxpayer money to threaten them to fire the prosecutor. Or when he flies him over on Air Force 2 to Beijing, and he brings home $1.5 billion with a B from the Chinese State National Bank, and no one asks any questions. All the president is doing is say, hey, maybe there's some corruption out there that we need to look into if we're going to give you guys an additional $400 million to defend yourselves against the Russians, which, by the way, Obama and Biden didn't give any money. They gave meals and no money.
Jesse, you are struggling so hard to get away from the news.
Does it feel like I'm struggling, Juan?
Yeah, it feels like you're just
I feel pretty good.
You're just like gushing.
Williams.
This problem is that we have this phone call. We have this. It's not a transcript. It's a memo, the best apparently. But here's the thing. The president put it out thinking, well, I'm going to let him have it. I don't think it's that bad. It came out today. It's made it worse for the president because people are saying, wait a minute, you're trying to look into Hillary Clinton? You're looking into Joe Biden? We thought you were the president.
Yeah, only Trump can be investigated. Only Trump can be investigated.
Did Obama investigate Trump in the campaign with the Italians?
Yeah, he wiretapped. Don't you say he wiretapped Trump Tower? Get out of here.
What countries did the Obama administration use to help investigate the Trump campaign? I have the British. I have the Italians. I have the Australians, and I have the Ukrainians.
Go after the
Donald Trump can ask an ally, oh, hey, can you look into some corruption when there's actual evidence?
Can I ask Juan a question? So when the Ukrainian president comes out today in front of the press and makes a joke about how he's happy they're on television and not on a phone call, and then says that there was no pressure, is he lying?
I don't think he's lying. I think he's a man who gets support from the United States government and feels that he is compelled to keep the United States as an ally.
If you don't think that there was pressure,
Katie,
you agree
the
with him.
readout from that Trump phone call, here's what Kiev wrote. Kiev wrote that the president made it clear that we have to proceed on this investigation in order to have a good relationship with the United States.
That's not what
That's what Kiev said. That's what Kiev said in their readout on that phone call.
Guess what? We're going to take a quick break. Actually, not a break at all. There's no commercial, but a break from this to Greg. He's got a monologue for you.
Oh, yay, thank you. You're going to love this. So right now, the media's face is pressed up against the window of the candy store, and they're salivating, the glass fogged, hoping against hope, staring into a field of dreams, believing if they build an impeachment, a crime will surely come. So let's step back and see this for what it is. Another example of the media and the Dems fashioning the worst of things out of the best of times, all to avenge an emotional loss. You want some examples? Well, as America leads the way in climate with cleaner energy, the left tells their kids we have a decade to live. As race relations improve from the mass demonstrations of 5 years ago, the media sees racism in every nook. As men and women reach equality in all facets, the media questions whether gender is just a fantasy. And as women and minorities gain more employment than ever, the guy running the show is called a bigoted sexist. A guy called Trump, a guy who wakes up every morning in that candy store called America, wondering what we can get out of the world and not the reverse. For him, it's not about money, influence, or sex. God knows he's had enough of that for 5 lifetimes. It's about the job, and you're his boss. See, he's a guy who is stingy with both blood and treasure, which is why he's trying to replace real wars with trade wars. He's sending in accountants instead of tanks. And yet, even as America is governed by an orange Gandhi, the media and Dems see him as Hitler. You see the trend? As the world gets better, which the metrics show, the media panics. How can they report good times if Trump's involved in all of them? So every day is doomsday since 2016, which is why now they're outside that candy store waiting for that sweet impeachment, desperate for the taste of revenge, the sweetest bonbon of all. Hold your applause. Dana, while Donald Trump was talking, apparently, like, the other networks were cutting in and out to fact check him. Isn't that nice? Would they ever do that to Obama, you think?
No, I don't.
How dare they?
So, but hopefully we wouldn't either, right?
Yes.
That would be the thing. If you want to take the president's speech, take it.
Yeah.
But look, everybody to each their own. However you want to get your coverage, and then we'll get our viewers and ratings. I do think when it comes to the media, for example, earlier there was a story that broke around 4 o'clock. The Washington Post said that the acting director of national intelligence was threatening to quit because he was not going to be allowed to speak freely. And the press secretary at the White House said the Washington Post gave us literally 6 minutes to respond. That's her words. I don't know exactly what happened. That's what she said. And I know what it's like. You're at UNGA. You've got 6 minutes. You're like, wait, I got to call the DNI. You got to check with the National Security Advisor. You got to call the CIA. I mean, you can't do all of that in 6 minutes. They went with a story. It goes out there. All of a sudden, then you have the acting director of national intelligence say, that's not true.
Yeah.
I never threatened to quit. I was never going to quit. He will be on the Hill tomorrow. I do think when it comes to all of this, the breathlessness of the reporting is always good to remind yourselves that waiting for more information is always a better answer. And I do think that that is true for the Democrats as well. I find it really curious that Nancy Pelosi, who had been so cautious and kind of like off-putting to her the rest of her caucus, saying we're not going to go for impeachment right now. This is bad politics. We don't have anything. There's no smoking gun. We don't have the evidence. And yet they do this before they get the transcript. Seems to me like they went out on the limb and then sawed it off.
She was like hesitantly. She didn't want to kick that soccer ball into the net. But she felt, oh, they're screaming at me. The base is screaming at me. Katie, what happens if they actually undo an election? Have they thought it through how half of America might respond if they try to impeach a president based on a phone call? What would happen?
Well, Mike Pence will be president, and that'll be much worse. It'll be much, much worse. So maybe they should think about this twice.
Yes.
You know, it's amazing how they continue to talk about the need to protect democracy and the voting and all this stuff, but yet they are now going down this road of reversing an election that they don't like. And they've done this through a number of steps, through the Russia investigation, this phone call now. We haven't been able to name any kind of high crime and misdemeanor that any of them can cite properly with any kind of evidence. And the question is the media ever going to learn anything? I mean, are they activists or are they reporters? Because a lot of the stuff, you know, the Mueller report was supposed to show everything that happened. Robert Mueller was supposed to breathe life into the report. None of that happened. And here we are now with the transcript, which doesn't show the quid pro quo, which was reported yesterday multiple times. It doesn't mention Joe Biden nearly as many times as reported. And yet there's no correction from, quite frankly, anybody about the fact that they got this wrong. And I wonder if they sit around in newsrooms and ever have a conversation about how they can do things better, because there's a lot.
You know, Jesse, this is like another textbook example of the accelerating mob. Saw it with Covington, you saw it with Kavanaugh. All this is going to do is red pill another 3 or 4 million Americans.
Yeah, I don't trust the media anymore after they screwed up royally on the Russia hoax, and they did it again with Kavanaugh, and now they've done it again with this story. They got way out in front of over their skis, and it looks like it was a big nothing burger. Am I allowed to say nothing burger?
I don't like nothing burger. How about nothing burrito? How about a nothing burrito?
Nothing burrito fits fine. I want to go back to something that Juan said. He said it is a crime. What is the crime exactly, Juan?
I think that he was asking a foreign government to interfere in American politics.
Okay, so was that... Okay, that's not
he didn't ask to interfere.
That wasn't a statutory crime, number one. Number two, isn't that exactly what the Obama administration did when they used their allies to help spy on the Trump campaign?
Never. But here's the thing. Never asked an ally.
Okay, so the British weren't involved in Spygate?
No, excuse me.
The Italians weren't involved, and the Australians?
Excuse me. The United States intelligence community, in the process of gathering information, said they had conversations with people in Britain overseas. That's not the Obama administration.
Okay, so the Obama FBI, DOJ, and CIA aren't the Obama administration? Juan, go back to school. All right, here, also, how is this, they say this is not even a campaign violation. That's the level of the crime. It's not even a campaign violation because there's nothing, a thing of value attached to it. Okay.
Oh, yeah, information.
There's no, okay, so how did this? Hillary Clinton, the $9 million she sent overseas to get Russian dirt on Trump that they used to spy on him, that's not a thing of value. But this is.
I think Democrats.
Biden's not even the nominee, and this is his son, the non-Democrat nominee's son, getting looked into as a thing of value.
Apparently the Obama team at the time during the presidency was uncomfortable with the judgment that Hunter Biden was exercising, and
good for them.
And but didn't do anything about it, right? That we know of. Maybe they staved off other things.
How do you think they would allow Hunter Biden to freelance in Ukraine while his dad's running point?
Well, that's what I'm saying.
And enrich himself. Like, how would they ever allow that? I thought this was supposed to be the most ethical organization.
And the China example could be worse. And that story was going to come out. So both of these things that Nancy Pelosi was hoping were not going to come to fruition, or at least not right away, impeachment and the Hunter Biden and the questions into the Biden whole extravaganza, you know, the trip to China on Air Force Two. Right. Those were two things that she was trying to stave off. Now they are front and center. And one thing about the election, we're in the middle of a Democratic primary. Lots of Democrats running for office. We still have 20. Biden has been able to defy gravity in all of these polls for a long time with one key issue: electability.
Yeah.
So now his polling numbers have started to come down. Elizabeth Warren's have been on the rise, but there's still a lot of time. There could be changes. If you are a Democrat today and the only thing you want is to beat President Trump in 2020, and your key issue is electability, does any of this make you feel like Joe Biden could be more vulnerable in 2020? And I think the answer is yes, and you'll see some of these Democrats step on the gas.
I don't think so, and let me just say why I don't think so. First of all, what you got is, I mean, you were suggesting earlier, Nancy Pelosi's out on a limb and it's been sawed off. In fact, more people, after the release of today's memo, are saying, you know what, we're behind impeachment. And I think you're going to see this kind of shift in the polls as well. And when it comes to this whole business about Joe Biden and Beau Biden, This has been investigated. So much Hunter Biden.
Who investigated it?
Well, Peter Schweitzer is the one who started this with his book back in 2018, and then you see a lot of this echo in the conservative chamber. And you know what? People have looked into this. People have searched through this, and it hasn't come to anything.
It hasn't come to anything because all the liberal media covers for him, Juan.
This is all you have. Let me just say.
Juan, if Don Jr. made $1 billion from China, wouldn't you think that was wrong?
The thing about this is, you say, oh, it's the media. Is the media not supposed to report when the President of the United States engages in this kind of behavior? When they have this letter? Oh, they're not supposed to say a word. Oh, it's the media's fault.
They're not reporting.
They're
controlling and manipulating.
They have to show both sides. To interfere.
Let's show both sides. I think we have a great montage. I think we're going to compare two different kind of examples of the media. There was this Russian versus now. I think that's what we're doing. Why not? Maybe.
I certainly say with confidence that there is significant evidence of collusion.
It's a crime. It's on the statute books. And crimes are typically impeachable offenses.
The beginning of the end of the Trump presidency. This is about a commander-in-chief who actually is meddling with America's national security.
What we're seeing is worse than Watergate. I keep getting asked, are there echoes of Watergate in this? And there are.
To quote Katie, to quote CNN, same playbook, different day. That's how they talk about Trump. They were talking about themselves.
And if you look at the credibility of who's making these arguments, people are going to say, okay, President Trump has been right about this, and people like Adam Schiff and people in the media have been wrong. They've never produced. I got to say, Democrats better be careful what they wish for, because every time they call for one of these investigations, people start looking around about what's going on, and it always comes back to prove that they've been accusing President Trump and Republicans of exactly what they've been doing. And so there are serious questions about whether, again, Joe Biden was selling influence through his son, Hunter Biden, and whether these deals were being made as a result of his dad
I haven't heard that
vice
part.
president.
Where is that coming from? Because I definitely hear the Hunter Biden questionable judgment thing, but that Joe Biden benefited financially?
No, I'm saying Hunter Biden benefited financially from his father being the vice president.
Because they said we want to get close to your dad.
You know, getting influence.
You know what amazes me? Imagine if, because you guys keep bringing up Obama. Imagine if Obama asked a foreign leader, say, hey, can my lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, or can my attorney general, Bill Barr, get involved with your investigation? Remember, no, Jesse, remember this. He's the president of the United States. If he thinks someone has committed a crime, he can go to the Justice Department and say, hey, we need to investigate. Or go overseas and say, hey, you get involved in our
What do you think the Russia
politics?
investigation was? It's a counterintelligence investigation under the auspices of the commander-in-chief. He set that up. They did it for the president himself.
They did it for Obama.
It was a counterintelligence investigation.
So in other words,
it was run through the FBI, the DOJ, and the CIA for Barack Obama. It was not criminal.
So in other words, Obama's the one who leaked that the Russians had some interference in the election to benefit Donald Trump. That was Barack Obama.
No, they just spied on him and trapped his campaign and then illegally investigated him.
Jesse, you're weakening
Let me
your
just
own
tell you another
argument with
thing.
this kind of balderdash.
You're saying this isn't investigated fully and no one ever found anything?
Nobody.
Some Chinese diplomat goes to the Trump Tower Hotel, orders a cocktail, and liberals fire up 5 lawsuits. And they want to, like, investigate and impeach over the emollients clause. But Joe Biden's son takes $1 billion from the Chinese, and you think it's not been investigated fully?
So
it hasn't.
In other words, Jim Comey.
It hasn't. If Don Jr. did that, you think that would be okay?
So Jim Comey, who's a Republican, Robert Mueller's Republican, all these guys investigate. Oh, it's terrible. It's deep state.
I love your Republicans.
That's all I need, Juan.
What happened today?
Hypocrites.
Because what happened today with this, we now know, no sawing off of a branch, we now know that this president tried to get a foreign power involved in American politics.
That's what the Obama administration just did 2 years ago.
Everybody, you know what's great? Everybody in America is going to read the transcript, and then it's good. Then everybody's going to go, "What a bunch of garbage! The media lied to us again."
Right. All right. Nancy Pelosi and others have spent days telling you President Trump violated his constitutional oath and broke the law. But then the White House released a transcript of the call with Ukraine's president. Turns out, though, there's no smoking gun or a quid pro quo like Pelosi and her pals promised. Now, despite all new information, Democrats are refusing to back away from their talking points.
We have the President of the United States engaged in a shakedown of a foreign president. This is how a mafia boss talks.
That is textbook abuse of power, and the transcripts have become Exhibit A.
We don't do this in America. It's so gross. It's so corrupt.
If anything is a high crime and misdemeanor, it is what the president did.
He will be held accountable. No one is above the law.
And then there's this. New polls show only about 1/3 of Americans support impeachment. And not only that, Dana, the president's poll numbers are better than they've ever been. Real Clear Politics has it at 45, highest since his election, and higher now than Barack Obama's were at the same time in his presidency.
One of the things that was the tipping point for Nancy Pelosi, apparently, were these 7 members of Congress that are Democrats that won in 2018. They are freshmen that all served in the military or have some sort of intel background. And they had been very resistant about impeachment for a long time, saying that, look, and also Trump won their districts in 2016. That means 2020, those districts are definitely ripe for Republicans to win back. So they had been saying, nope, Nancy Pelosi, we're not for impeachment. Don't listen to AOC, etc. Then, because of the reporting about this issue, before seeing the transcript, before seeing the whistleblower report, those 7 got together and wrote this op-ed and said, actually, now we all believe that we should move forward with an impeachment inquiry. And that is when Nancy Pelosi was like, well, what am I going to do now? Because she, in some ways, as the Speaker of the House, instead of saying we're going to stave this off, she had to be for what's going to happen in her caucus. I don't know if it's showing up in the polls, but in that 37%, those are people that are really active in calling their members of Congress. I heard a few of them today say, you wouldn't believe, my phone's ringing off the hook, saying we have to hold President Trump accountable. But I would bet that there is just about the same, maybe 40% of people on the right who are saying, don't you dare do this. And then that margin that's left, they don't want to talk about this. There is not an appetite to do this. And this will take several months. This is not something like the Trudeau scandal that happened on Friday and it was done by Monday and nobody ever talked about it again. This is something, because now they are all bought in, and anything that happens, they're going to try to shoehorn evidence into this so that they can make their case over and over again. And this will probably go through the holidays unless somebody puts a stop to it.
And I believe we have some fresh sound from the president on Nancy Pelosi, if we can listen to that.
She's lost her way. She's been taken over by the radical left. She may be radical left herself, but she really has lost her way. I spoke to her about guns yesterday. She didn't even know what I was talking about. The whole party is taken over by the left. And thank you very much. My poll numbers have gone up, but I don't want them to go up for this reason. Nancy Pelosi, as far as I'm concerned, unfortunately, she's no longer the Speaker of the House.
Wow, that was from earlier today. But, Greg, I mean, it shows that he usually butters her up a little bit when he talks publicly about her. That's over with.
Well, I think he realizes that she's lost control, and you have to wonder. So you got the media and the Democrats are pushing for impeachment, knowing 99% it's not going to happen with a Republican-led Senate. So why are they doing this? To influence an election. Yeah. To influence an election. I don't know about you, but using millions and millions of dollars and man hours of our government to influence an election is worse than a casual conversation with a newly elected president in which that guy initiates the conversation about Giuliani and talks about buying planes. It was a typical conversation, but somehow that's worse? No, this is worse. How is that not a cause?
Can I add one other thing about this? Is it's the first time that we've actually had a situation where you have an impeachment inquiry happening before an election.
Yeah.
For Nixon and for Clinton, that was all after they had already been reelected. And I don't know, did you want to play this Carl Rove shot from earlier about how it's hurting the Democrats?
I mean, I was going to ask Katie quickly just before we play the Rove shot about the transparency issue with the president. So now he's come out and released this transcript. Yeah. He's saying he's going to release more transcript, and now he's challenging the Biden family to release some of their financial records, and he's exposed also some letters and some trips made by Senate Democrats to Ukraine, urging the Ukrainians to be complicit in the investigation of their political opponent, Donald Trump. What do you think about that play?
There have also been calls for the Vice President Joe Biden to release his transcripts of his conversations with Ukrainian and Chinese leaders while he was in the White House to kind of clear the air about there being no corruption and no paying for influence. But my question is, how are Democrats going to play this? So Nancy Pelosi yesterday was saying she wants all these committees to come up with more information, more fact-finding, and bring her a conclusion on impeachment. So after the Russia investigation ended, they essentially just redid the Russia investigation by calling up the same people who had been subpoenaed by Robert Mueller. Well, who are they going to call up now if they're going for a different direction on this investigation. Because if they're going to hold hearings, they're going to have witnesses. The whistleblower said that they want to come up. Lindsey Graham saying, sure, we'll have a hearing on it. But who are Democrats actually going to talk to when it comes to issuing those subpoenas and getting valid information and fact-finding when we have the transcript? It doesn't
that's
show
a really
what
good point. I hadn't thought of that. I want to ask Juan now. Karl Rove thinks that Joe Biden might suffer some blowback from all of this. Let's listen and you can react to that.
The Democrats have put themselves in a place. Think about this. This is going to hurt Joe Biden badly because we're going to be talking about Ukraine and the idea of Hunter Biden being hired by a Moscow-leaning oligarch in order to demonstrate that he had juice with the United States.
And going back to the point before, if Liz Warren, her primary, I think, thing for running for president, one of them at least, is corruption and rooting out corruption in the Trump administration. Now you have a big corruption cloud floating over Joe.
You do not.
Does that get... You don't?
No. In fact, let me just say, the big cloud here today is whataboutism and an attempt to try to drag Joe Biden or Hunter Biden or somebody, just get somebody's body in here so we can distract you from what's going on with the news and President Trump.
We just saw the transcript.
By the way, Greg, let me just tell you something. The House can impeach the president. It's the Senate that would have to convict. And so